We're going to look at how Python handles strings now. Strings are characters, like letters, strung together to make words, sentences, etc. I'm just going to start off printing a string to the console. I'll just say hi and push the play button up here just to make sure everything's working okay. You can see my console pops up down here, and there it has printed out the word hi. All right, so let's create a variable to store my name. And say my name equals Bob Smith. And you'll notice that I've got Bob and Smith properly capitalized and with quotes around them. That is how you create a string. You don't have to specify in Python that it is a string. It just knows. So when we say print my name and I run it, we can see it prints out Bob Smith down here. Now strings have some functions. They are an object that has different functions built in. And so let's check out some of those. Just put a little comment here, string function examples. I'm going to print out my name, but this time I'm going to use one of the built-in functions. We're going to use the lower function, and what it does is it takes the text and turns it entirely into lowercase. So when I read that, you'll notice Bob Smith is all in lowercase. And similarly, there are a whole bunch of other functions that you have, and you can check them out. Just type the name of your variable, your string variable, push dot, and you can see a whole bunch of them here. Let's try the upper, push play again, and Bob Smith all in uppercase. Next, let's learn about escape characters. So sometimes you need to create a character that's difficult to put on the screen because, for example, like a return or an enter, so you can go down to a new line. So let's say, I don't know, let's make a list of favorite fruits here. Let's say, you know, apple, banana, orange, blueberries. And when I print that out, they all appear on one line. Oh, I haven't printed them out yet. Print fave fruit. Let's print them out all on one line. But let's say we wanted them all on separate lines at the end. There's an escape character which is a backslash, and then it interprets whatever follows that as a command. So the N command is a new line. So by doing this, each one of our fruits appears on its own line. You'll notice there's the space ahead of it. So if I had moved the new line ahead of the fruit, like that. Now they all appear on the same line. Okay. All right, let's do some other stuff. I'm going to create a first name variable, and let's Bob. Let's similarly make a last name variable. Put Smith in there. Bob Smith, and we can combine strings to create larger strings. So I know we already created a Bob Smith up here, but let's come down here and let's combine those. Or, well, let's first figure out how to print them out. So when you add strings together, it's called string concatenation. And we can do that with a plus sign. So if I just wanted to print out this, let's say first name, colon, and then I just use the plus sign, and I can write first name. And similarly, do the same thing down here. And let's do last name, colon, and plus last name. And when we run that, we can see it adds those strings together to create one called first name with Bob, and then last name Smith. But we might want to print them both variables in one go. So we could do this, first name plus last name. And when I run that, it works, but we get Bob Smith all together like that. So what we can do is just put a space in, oops, like this. Now when I run it, Bob Smith, it adds the space in there and prints out more like we'd like. There's another way of adding variables into your string, and that's using something called string interpolation. And the way we do that is I can say, let's print out, if I wanted to say your name is, and then I wanted to include first name and last name. Just before the first open quote, we put the letter F. And now it knows it's using string interpolation. And I can say first name space last name. Some people like doing it this way a bit better. When I run, your name is Bob Smith. Now you're not using so many pluses. And so what it does is it scans through the string just before it prints it out to see if there are any of these variables in here. And then it interpolates them, inserts the value from the string variable, and then prints it out to the console. So sometimes you might want to print out a number. So let's say we wanted to print out Bob Smith is 42 years old. So we could say Bob Smith is 42 years old. We could just write it out like this. But let's say we had his age stored in a variable. And so, as we learned before, you might think, okay, well, we can do this. But when we run it, it doesn't like that because age is an integer and it's not a string. So what we need to do is cast it to a string first. There's a function just called str, open bracket, and close bracket around the variable, and it turns it from being an integer into being a string. Now you might say, well, why don't we just store age as a string in the first place, put quotes around it? Well, later on, you might want to do math to it. So you might want to figure out how old is Bob Smith in 10 years. And you can't add to a string. So keeping it as an integer and casting it into a string when we need it is your best bet. So there are other functions. Actually, let's just one more concatenation of strings here. Let's build the full name. So we've got our first name, last name. Let's build full name, and we'll say full name equals first name plus a space plus last name. And that builds out our full name. Let's print that full name. There we go. So just like concatenation and interpolation, we can add strings together or combine them in different ways. Sometimes you want to get at substrings, which is part of a string. And let's say we had, as an example, well, let's use our full name variable. Let's say we wanted to pull out part of that. So to do that, I can say, let's say print, and we can call our full name variable, but we only want part of it. So we use the square brackets, and we say we're going to start at the start. That's what the 0 means. And go to character 4. Let's have a look. Actually, let's go to character 2. Push play, and we can say it's BO. If I change that to 3, we've got Bob. Change it to 4. Oops. Change it to 4. We've got Bob again, but with a space. Change it to 5. Bob S. 6. You get the idea. So we're pulling at a substring there. Let's go back. Let's change it to 3. So it just grabs Bob. Similarly, we can start our substring midway through the string. So if I say full name, open square bracket. Let's start at 4 and go to 6. See what happens there. Push play. Oh, there's SM. So you can see if I started over here at 3, starts with a space. 2 should be the last B in Bob. But I like where it was. Let's start at 4. Instead of 6, let's go to 8. Smith. 9. Smith. So there we go. We've broken down our substring into 2 separate strings and printed out just part of them. So, for example, if I wanted to, I know this is redundant because we've already done it, but we could say full name 2 equals, this substring was the first name. Oops. And put in our space. We need pluses either side of that. And then this substring was the last name. So we can rebuild the name. Push play. There we go. Bob Smith again. All right. So obviously this is a silly looking example, but you can do it like that. Yeah, sometimes you want to know how long a string is. And we can do that by using the len function. So I'm going to print out, call the len function, and then we just pass it a string. Let's find out how long it is. Push play, and it prints out. It is 9 characters long. So if we had a longer string, it would print out something longer. So for example, print that. That's 18 characters long. Hello, how are you? All right. We can also print out things multiple times. So let's say if we want to print it out, Bob's name a number of times. So we stored it in first name variable. So if I was just to hit play there, we should see Bob. But let's say we wanted Bob twice. I can use asterisk 2, Bob, 3, Bob. You get the idea? Bob. Number 4. Okay. Next, we can check to see if a string is in another string using the in function. So I could say print. Let's check for Bob in full name. And we push play, and it says true. It is. Let's print Rob in full name and check, and it says false. Rob is not in full name. But let's say someone were to type this. How about Bob in lowercase? You think it might say yes, but no, it's because it's literally checking for B-O-B with an uppercase B starting it out. Can't find it, so it says false. But if we wanted to check again, we can use one of the functions we learned before, full name.lower. So now it forces the full name variable into lowercase before searching it for the string Bob, and now it should find it. Haha, it has. A similar function, so that's the search function. We can also find something and it'll return its position. So I could say, to do that, we print out full name 2, followed by, let's figure out, oops. Gotta get my capitalization correct there. All right, full name 2, And here we're going to say dot find, and let's search for uppercase Bob, and it'll return 0 because Bob's right at the front. If we do the same thing, let's look for Smith. Prints out 4 because Smith starts at position 4. Print full name 2 dot find. Let's look up Rob. It returns a -1 because it can't find it. So that is how you find a substring in a string. Incidentally, if we wanted to, back here where we built, where we printed out the first name. So if I know someone's first name is at the start, let's just do this. We can say print full name, but here, instead of putting number 3, so we know, or sorry, let's do the last name. That's more interesting. So this is how we printed out last name. The last name with the substring command before. Now, we can do this. So instead, we're having it return 4. We found where does Smith exist in there, and then we're going to character 9. It should print out. It didn't work. Gotta make sure that's an uppercase N, and now it should work. There we go. So it detected, or it found the position of Smith within that string, and then printed it out. So there you go. That's how you use substrings. That's how you find text. These are a whole bunch of handy tools that you might need when programming using strings in Python.